Don't drink the Kool-Aid. One comic book that was on time, their sales plunged 37% in 2023, despite doing fewer live streams. Hello, this is Robert Romano with comicsgate.org. Hit that subscribe button. Today, I wanted to talk more about late books. I also did an online poll recently to see what percent of books do people think are late and versus which ones are on time. I think this is a very valuable discussion to be having in the context of indie comics, whether you're crowdfunding or you're, such as Comicsgate and other indie creators who use Indiegogo, Fund My Comic, to not pre-print books. Other creators will pre-print books, like Eric July has done. It also sells online, and he's experiencing actually a sales decline as well in 2023. By 37% from ISOM from ISOM 1 to ISOM 2, actually went down 37%. Cyberfrog 3 is actually down 39% from Cyberfrog 2, if you just look at the funding periods that have taken place. And so I wanted to kind of go into some of these numbers, but also look at the online poll. And I've done some preliminary analysis because I've backed more than 350 books on Indiegogo and other platforms. And so I wanted to look at what percentage of those were actually on time, which ones were fulfilled, et cetera. And I have some preliminary data. It covers books that were funded from 2018 to 2020. And so what I'm going to do here is share my screen, and we'll start to go through this. I think it's very interesting. Hold on a second. We go over here. Nope, don't want that one. There we go. We go to that one. We minimize that. All right. So now you should be able to see my Twitter there. I'm starting off with this tweet. Cyberfrog 2 raised $835,000 during funding. You can see that that's Cyberfrog 1. There's Cyberfrog 2. You can see 1.2 million overall. That includes in demand though. But it did $835,000 in funding. And then Cyberfrog 3 comes around, and then the sales had dropped to $502,000 in the funding period. $570,000 so far in demand, but we're not through in demand yet. Ethan hasn't closed it yet. It's going to get another bump when he does. But here we go. So $835,000 during funding, plus, and eventually another $373,000 in demand over a couple of years. Cyberfrog 3 raised $502,000 during funding, a 39% drop. In demand has raised another 66%, but we won't know the final number until it closes. So let's focus on the funding periods. Elsewhere, ISOM number 1 raised $3.7 million. This is a huge success. It's not actually crowdfunding though, because you can't use things like Amazon Pay or PayPal for crowdfunding. It has to be for direct sales. And so Eric July that he could take advantage of these other payment platforms when he launched. It pre-printed all the books, had everything in the warehouse, and to say, no, these books are they're coming to customers right away. That's not crowdfunding. Crowdfunding would be you raise the money in advance, and then you take that money to either pay your creative team, or if you've already done your book, then maybe what you're doing is going to print with whatever funds are raised. Or July has a different model that you'll get your books faster. They're going to be on time. And I think that was so he could leverage things like Amazon Pay and PayPal. In any event, it did $3.7 million in the first campaign, and then it dropped to $2.3 million in the second campaign, and that's a 37% drop. So again, it's actually quite easy to calculate this. You just do 3,700 minus 2,300 equals divided by 3,700. There you go, 37.8% drop. And you could do the same thing with Cyberfrog 2 and Cyberfrog 3. So you start out with 835 minus 502 equals divided by 835. And you'll see that's a 39.8% drop. Those are two very similar numbers, 39.8% and 37%. Both campaigns, one was late. Cyberfrog 2 was late. Cyberfrog 1 was late too. That's worth noting. Cyberfrog 1 initially did 531,000 during the funding period, and then it actually increased. Even though Cyberfrog 1 was late, Cyberfrog 2 actually saw an increase in funding. So here I'm noting that, okay, Cyberfrog 3 does show a drop off, but so does ISOM, which was on time. It experiences a drop off as well. And so that's kind of the topic of that we're discussing here. So we're just cutting to the chase. I'm giving you the facts. I'm not going to, you can stop watching now if you want, because it's like, oh yeah, those are quite similar. Maybe there's something else going on besides late books or on-time books. So during comparable periods of funding, both campaigns experienced very similar drop-offs, 39% and 37% respectively, despite one being late and the other being on time. When Cyberfrog 3 closes, we can see what the total drop-off was. So again, Ethan hasn't closed it yet, so we're not going to look at the 1.2 million figure and then see, oh, what's the final closing number? Because he hasn't closed the campaign yet. So we're just looking at these funding periods, which is, I think, apples to apples. There is no in demand for ISOM 2. Eric July, or ISOM 1 for that matter, he raises the funds and then he goes to fulfillment. And then I think you can still get I'm not sure how you can get other issues of this. But there you go, 3.7 million to 2.3 million. That's a significant drop off. So there might be other factors though, besides late and on time. There may be other factors like, say, inflation or household credit that are impacting sales in indie comics right now. There are more factors than just late and on time. And so that's kind of the point I wanted to make. And but this is actually kind of the tail end of a discussion I had initiated. I wanted to do an experiment. I've backed, says 375 contributions on Indiegogo, and more than 350 of those are for indie comic books. Sometimes I'll back some other types of stuff, but what I wanted to see was, okay, guys, I've backed more than 350 books from independent creators over the years. What percentage of those do you think are on time? What percent is on time? So it's one of the options was more than half, but only 1 in 4 people thought that most campaigns are on time. Most people, 75% of those polled, thought that campaigns were late. Most campaigns are late. So 20% thought only 1 to 5% are on time. Another 25.5% thought that 6 to 25% of these things are on time. 29% thought that 26 to 50% would be on time. And then 25% thought that more than half would be on time. Now, what was the correct answer? I'm still going through these numbers. I think they're very interesting. Let's see. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's scroll down here. Roughly 3 out of 4 books. Okay, let's look at this one. Okay, so as I was tallying this up, I wanted to say, oh, I got to crash. I've already looked at 96 books here. So of the first 96 books from 2018 to 2020 that I analyzed, 70 of them were late. 26 of them were on time. 90 fulfilled and 6 are unfulfilled. So therefore, 27% were on time, 73% were late. The fulfillment rate was close to 94%, less than 1/3 of the way through counting. So there's still time to vote. And the polls closed now. So those were the final results. And many of the books are creators who have funded more than once. So I'm certain that you, the backers, have a no fund rule for late books. For starters, it is highly unlikely that any book you might fund will be late. But even if you had such a rule, how would you know ahead of time if the book was going to be late? Further, some of the on-time creators then end up being late in another campaign. Therefore, I doubt that a great number of serious backers will stop supporting books because of lateness. Some might, but not enough to offset the number of new backers that come onto subsequent campaigns. Finally, I'm seeing a number of late books doing the vast majority of their sales in demand. We covered that in the last video, that Kozor by the Clayton and Corey Barton, that the Barton brothers, that had done most of its sales in demand. I've noticed a few campaigns like that actually do more sales in demand despite being late because of the exceptional quality of the books. The more another example, there you see Joe Ball's Death. It's very late, but I think it's going to be like over 100 pages. So I don't think anyone expected that he might be able to get it done as quickly as he was anticipating. He's still working on it. It's exceptional quality. And I think 80 or 90% of the funds raised were actually in demand, despite the fact that it's been late. I think the number's still going up. I wouldn't be surprised if it hits 6 figures before he even delivers. But yeah, check out Death by Joe Ball. Kozor is closed by the Barton brothers, but you could check. I think they have a new campaign coming out. So check out the Clayton Barton's Twitter. You'll find his most recent project mailing list is up. But again, I'm seeing a number of late books doing the vast majority of their sales and demand, indicating that the longer it takes to produce a book, the more time it has to be seen. It might pay to be late in some cases. Later, I'll do an analysis to see if there's any financial advantage to being on time. And so then I had done a more thorough analysis of this. I said roughly 3 out of 4 books from comic creators are late. Customers are backing the late books, and the numbers show that they keep backing. About 94% fulfillment rate from 2018 to 2020 of the books I backed. Only 1 in 4 customers. This is an unscientific poll, so kind of grain of salt. You do a poll online. Now I assume everyone here is actually customers, and I posted it to Comic Skaters. So a lot of the Comic Skaters are backing books, and it's like, well, of the books that I backed, what do you think is late? What So it's roughly a quarter. Say each of I get 4 options, so it's like, oh well, but only 25% thought that most books are on time. I think that's important. Only 1 in 4 thought most books are on time. 3 out of 4 think most books are late. They're correct. And by the way, it was 3 out of 4 are late. So about only 25% or 20. It was 27%. So the top vote getter was 26 to 50%. This group was correct. That was the number. Now, as I go forward, it might be that the on time rate actually increases. It's like at the 2021, 2022, 2023. We'll see what's on time and what's late, and if that number changes drastically going forward. But I think it's important because these books have already had plenty of time to fulfill, and I'm seeing about a 94% fulfillment rate. I think that's important. So creators, John Malin, and so I'm noticing that repeatedly the argument is made to stop streaming. Zack said he's stopping to do videos until he gets a book to printers. There's been other discussions led by Eric July about this very same topic. Maybe he's going to spend less time in streaming too. Ethan Van Sciver, he said he's been doing less live streams. You've probably noticed he's actually not going as live as often as he used to. While he focuses on Rainbow to Brute and things like that. Now, my argument in the last video was that creators who are well capitalized, they might be able to step back from YouTube, but for 99% of creators, that are not so well capitalized, and they can just, kind of just sit down and focus on their projects. They got to keep on YouTubing. There could be cash flow reasons for that. There could be other rationales for, continuing YouTubing. I think that's very, very important. So creators like Shane Davis and John Malin are right. Don't commit suicide by listening to this. If everyone who was ever late stopped marketing, there'd be no promotional network left. And when the artists emerged from their studios to promote, they discovered they couldn't even get their books funded because the audience was gone. If you create, you have to promote, build your platforms. There's no other way. Chances are your channels are not big enough to do this full time, but that's okay. Keep building, find a niche. For customers, chances are you backed a late book and are either A, generally forgiving because you're trying to support independent creators. I put myself in that category. And the numbers show you keep backing. I mean, these books keep on getting funded. I think that's important to note. And B, you're being targeted with this messaging, late books, to make you resentful while other creators tout their on-time successes. Since the high odds are creators will be late, like 3 out of 4 are going to be late, no matter what you do. As a community, we have to make a decision. Are we going to support those who are sticking their necks out to produce these independent works, or we could just go do something else? It's like, oh, late books is the be all and end all. It's like, okay, well, I'll just go do something else. Not spend all my time on Twitter just complaining about late books. There's other things to do. And now there are those, though, I think, that are hanging out just to poison the well. Now, I'm a customer more than a creator or a YouTuber. I've backed more books than videos I've ever made or appeared on. And that probably includes doing open mic night with Tony. And we did a bunch of those, but I still back more than 350 books. I don't think I've been in 350 videos. Yes, I am trying to build platforms that can help creators and customers connect and build viewership and readership. That's comicskate.org, and soon comicskate.com is going to be a crowdfunder. It's more of a burden than anything, but I believe in it. So I stayed a course. And even though from my perspective, what I'm working on is very, very late, maybe it will succeed and maybe it won't. The numbers seem to show we are backing books, comic skaters and those who are backing indie projects in spite of lateness, and that we care about creators, and that we are also in the streaming audience, and we keep watching the shows too. It only takes an hour to read a book, so you're looking for something to do in between, and to keep up with these creators. Lots of people like to go to conventions to meet creators. Well, YouTube and Comicsgate provides a kind of a never-ending virtual convention. You can tune into these creators that you enjoy very much, see them working on their projects, see them offering commentary on various goings on in the industry. I think that's very interesting. That's why Comicsgate has been successful, quite honestly. Creators can tout their on-time success, but there are roughly, I think there's a 73% chance of potentially alienating customers who value the creators and the quality and the value that they are providing and are aware that most books are late. Again, in the poll, most people are aware of the fact that, 75% are aware of the fact that books are late. Most of the books are late. So you really can't, you're not going to change that. So that's just something to consider there. It's like, customers keep on backing these books in spite of lateness. And then we're seeing everyone go on endless, here I am doing another video about late books. People are probably getting annoyed by this. The idea that, some customers are going to be annoyed at the fact that their book is late. But people who keep on backing the books, knowing that the books are late and that they want to support the customers, they have an opinion too. And they might make up the vast majority of the audience, just saying. And getting someone who's irate over a late book, trying to get them back to being a paying customer might be more difficult, might be easier to find new customers. Even if the book, if the books are fulfilling and people are being kept up to date. And in most instances, that's what I know, is that when Martina Markota had a problem with her artist, and she even had a copyright lawsuit with them, but she ends up winning. She has the trademark for Lady Alchemy. She got, Von Klaus and a different artist to work on the book and to help get it to completion, and she fulfilled it. And it's a wonderful project, but it took her quite a long time. But she kept her supporters up to date. She did a good job, and she fulfilled. And I think that if she wanted to do Lady Alchemy too, I don't think she'd have a problem funding it in spite of the lateness. The fact that she stuck with it and she got it fulfilled, I think would, it might actually, bring more backers to her. And, maybe she has a better plan for completion if she keeps going with it. Just as an example. Now, creators who are, keep on going on and on about being on time. Oh, I'm so great, I'm on time. That's fine. You can say that. I think that, creators who bust their asses and get the work done, deserve credit for that. But I don't know if it makes a difference financially in terms of being successful in the crowdfunding. So I know it's a little counterintuitive what I'm saying here, but just hear me out. They might also be risking the fairly high odds that one day their printer will be late or something will happen, and so they will be late too. So just consider the data. Do your own market research. Don't take my word for it. I'm just doing a survey of the books I backed. You can do that for yourselves, and create a deadline. Mindful, the odds are you're not going to meet it. So if you're a crowdfunding creator, maybe you're not doing this full time, and you set a date for yourself, there's like a 73% chance you're not going to hit your deadline. Even if you think that, like, oh, I gave myself 2 years, that was enough time, right? So far, it's showing that creators consistently underestimate how long it's going to take to put these projects together. And I think that's okay. And so as long as customers know that, they should be given reasonable expectations about what they're backing, since 99% of the books to choose from in crowdfunding particularly are not, people are not doing this full time. They have full-time jobs and they're trying to create independent works in their spare time. That's what's going on here. Very few can say as far as creators go, that they've never been late. And every year that goes by, the odds are 73% of books are late. that number will get smaller. The amount of creators who can say they've never been late is going to keep dwindling. So that's just something to consider. So we can foster a late books mob mentality. Those doing so might one day be late themselves and see the mob turn on them. Like, if you're making a big fuss about this and you're saying that this is the be all and end all, but then one day you're late and you've kind of fostered a mob mentality in your own customers, well, they might turn on you. They'll be like, he's late too. See, everything sucks. It's like, we don't have to foster that mentality at all. We can provide information and data to crowdfunding customers about what the realistic projections are on estimated deliveries. Those are estimates. And we should emphasize that we're trying to guess ahead of time. How long is it going to take me to write this? How long is it going to take me to draw this? How long is it going to take me to get a printer lined up, to get all the trading cards, whatever goodies were added on? How long is it going to take me to deliver it? And so on and so forth. There can be delays. I think that people should be mindful that there are going to be delays, particularly with crowdfunding. And it's okay to say that. And I think the books will still fund, even if that's fully advised up front. Here, let's see, where we go. If you think crowdfunding creators, being late hurts your ability to downfund. So I've seen I think Graham Nolan had suggested this then. I've got a lot of backers who would back my books, but but people say, there's too many late books or something like that. So, but I would just say, if you think crowdfunding creators being late hurts your ability to crowdfund, giving the years-long reality of late books that most projects appear to be delivering late, about 73% of that, and the reality not changing. They ain't changing. It's always going to be true. Maybe as I go forward, I get to 21, 22, 2023, we'll see that the on-time rate increases. But I mean, I still suspect that most of the books are going to end up having been late. And so if you don't think you can crowdfund because there's other crowdfunding creators who are going to be late, well, maybe don't do it. Because you can't change that fact that this is the market reality that we're seeing, is that books are late. And it's not to be, adversarial. I enjoyed the discussion. Graham had a great live stream on this, and he discussed it, and he talked about the nuances that go into it. And, he sounds generally of the mind that, sometimes things are late, guys. It's just important to update your backers. And that's really what I think it needs to happen here. And most creators, they are updating their backers. So I'm not sure what if there's any controversy actually. So I think that this is easy to kind of discuss. And it's also, it's important to have discussions about these types of things. Let's see here. If you think that this hurts your ability to crowdfund, given the reality that this is not changing, then don't do it. And forget about the promotional network, because you're going to have a lot of creators who are going on to live streams to promote their works, and they might be late. And so being late might not, but you should, but consider you might be wrong about this. If being on time doesn't help, that's the argument, right? It's like, being late hurts everybody, or it hurts the creators who are late. But then you look at their projects and they're getting fully funded, and then people keep coming back. Well, if being late doesn't hurt, then maybe does being on time help? I'm gonna go back later. I want to see, does being on time help you raise more money or something? And now if being on time doesn't help, then being late might not hurt as much as being suggested. Returning readers are critical. So if you've lost readers because you were too late, well, you're going to have to go find new readers. That's important too. Ultimately, fulfilling and having back issues available, even temporarily, for new readers is where I believe you'll enjoy and build long-term success. Again, I'm not a crowdfunding creator. Love to be, but I might not be able to do it full time. So if I do it, I'm going to have to do it on the side. I'll probably be part-time, and I might be late. But it's good if you are doing this full time to have your back issues available. Then you bring in new customers. You'll say, you can get the back issues right here. Boom, boom, boom. Whether it's on eBay or somewhere else, or you can get it on the campaign. It's like, back Cyberfrog 3. And, you want a copy of Cyberfrog 2 and Cyberfrog 1. You can get them over here. I think that's a good way to bring in new customers, because they feel like, I can get the complete story. And so for repeat creators who are doing this full time, the incentive to fulfill and to keep their programs going is built in. Now, as you can imagine, this generated some discussion in the Comicsgate community. Here's Vickyverse. It's like, we've got Vickyverse's attention. She loves to talk about late books. She says, in response to this huge wall of text essay, no, they are not returning to back more books. The analytics of CG campaigns show the exact opposite of what you're claiming here, Robert. So she claims there's analytics of CG books. I've done independent books, even Comicsgate and non-Comicsgate books, and I just look, say, how many of them are late? Doesn't matter if they're Comicsgate or not. And then Hell's Only Two says, I'm not reading his diatribe. What is he even claiming? If you can tell me, please. Oh, she says that people don't care. This is Vicky, that people don't care about late books. I think I stopped reading after he made that incredibly wrong statement and just skimmed. I was like, oh, you didn't consider anything I wrote. So I said, you can disagree with the analysis, but explain the facts. Almost all the campaigns I backed got funded. 3 out of 4 were late, 94% fulfilled. Many were return campaigns that increased on second offerings despite being late. Others were late and did most of their sales in demand despite being late. Finally, since 3 out of 4 campaigns during the period tested were late, it might be more difficult to show being late hurts. So let's test the null hypothesis. This was my challenge to Graham Nolan as well. Can anyone show being on time in crowdfunding helps? It's like, okay, if most books are late and you're trying to discern, oh, who got hurt by the late books? It's like, oh, well, if almost everything is late or 3 out of 4 are late, how do I test that? If especially if everything keeps on getting funded. Another way to test the proposition is to just test the opposite. If being late hurts, then being on time should help. You could measure being late hurting by saying, oh, this on-time creator, they were able to build success, right? Well, here's an on-time creator, Eric July, 3.7 million in the first campaign, and then 2.3 million in issue 2. So maybe being on time isn't the be-all and the end-all. Maybe that's not the sole determining factor of success. Maybe there's other factors that we should consider, and I allude to those. I think that consumer credit at the tail end of a business cycle could be highly relevant to this discussion. Here's the St. Louis Fed. You have total consumer credit owned and securitized, and you have consumer price index for all urban consumers. And what you tend to see in a business cycle leading up to and prior to recessions are run-ups in both consumer credit and also run-ups in inflation. So as prices, when prices are dropping, people take on more consumer credit. Eventually, they start to max out on their credit cards. You can also see inflation get baked into that. And as prices are rising, eventually people kind of max out on their credit cards. And then, basically they're gonna stop taking on new debt. Consumer purchases will begin to drop, particularly due to inflation, especially when you max out credit cards as a household. And then, when the purchases are dropping, you can see recessions periodically, economic slowdowns. The unemployment rate's going to go up during those contexts. But what also happens is you see a contraction, a consumer credit contraction. Now, sometimes, usually in the old days, the run up of credit would coincide with inflation going up, but not with inflation peaking. Inflation can peak later, and then consumer credit's already dropping. But suffice to say, you see this towards the end of a business cycle. Happened in the 70s. Every time that thing pops up, it's going to probably make the video jump. So we don't want to scroll over too much. Here's the current business cycle we're in. I can actually go to 5 years here and show you. This is where we are right now. Since 2020, inflation has definitely gone up. Consumer credit has gone up, and it peaked right as inflation was peaking, consumer credit was peaking. And now that inflation is coming down because consumer purchases are coming down, people are using their credit cards less, the inflation's coming down. And so that's actually, for once, it's coinciding. And I think that that's a huge factor to consider as it relates to what's going on in kind of retail purchases. In general, when inflation goes up, you max out your credit card, you're going to use your credit card less. Plus, if everything costs more, you're going to, maybe you're focusing on, I got to buy food. I have to pay my utilities. Everything's more expensive. You have the less money left over to make retail purchases for luxury goods like comic books. And particularly for crowdfunding and things like that. So the fact that both Ethan Van Sciver experienced a drop off from Cyberfrog 2 to Cyberfrog 3. He's funding in 2023. And so did Eric July. He went from 3.7 million to 2.3 million in 2023 for ISOM number 2. It could have a lot to do with not late books or quality issues or whatever. It could have to do with the consumer credit cycle coming to an end, the business cycle coming to an end, and the high inflation really pinching households right now. Just an alternative explanation. And I think that's one that's relevant right now. But clearly being on time or being late, it doesn't seem to, I don't think it makes a difference. And the fact that when you look at it, most of these campaigns are late. 3 out of 4 crowdfunding campaigns are going to be late. If that's the reality, if that's like the death knell for crowdfunding, it's like, oh, everyone hates late books and no one will ever back them again. Well, since most books are late, well, then this model will not work. So comic skaters need to make up their mind if they're, are they married to this proposition of late books? Like, it's just how it's going to be forever and ever and ever. I think Stu was replying to this, and he's like, well, I've reduced my purchases by 80%. And as a result of late books. You're wrong, Robert. And I said, well, at that rate, since 3 out of 4 books are late, eventually you're not going to have anyone left to back. You won't be backing any books. So kind of like, nice knowing you. But I mean, are people who are saying they're not participating and they're no longer customers? How much more right is that customer once you're no longer a customer? And maybe it's also important to listen to the returning customers who keep coming back in spite of lateness. Now, this was actually, I think, inspired. Certainly so. This was a video by Shane Davis where he responds directly to Zack and in his videos, and this kind of push by Eric July about this. And so I wanted to play what Shane Davis had to say about this. This is a video linked in the description. You should watch it.
My favorite streams are EBS, John, Cecil. It would make me sad if anyone went away to draw a year and not live stream constantly. So this has been thrown out there. I want to talk about this a little bit, but not too much. But it's kind of coming up. I think I maybe brought it up last night. But sometimes, I mean, you could call this Art of War stuff, or you could just call this boxing or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. Kickboxing, whatever, any type of martial arts. You can kind of learn. There's a couple of things. Your opponent wants to put you in a ring. They want to lead you to the turnbuckle. Okay, and boxing in a ring, they want to lead you into the turnbuckle. Some opponents, want to lead you into the cage. A good rule of thumb for both boxing and MMA or whatever is 2-step backwards angle. You can only take 2 steps backwards. Why? Because your opponent sees what's behind you. You don't have eyes in the back of your head. So your opponent is constantly, keep that in mind, your opponent sees a destination. They see what's behind you and they see where they want you to go. And a lot of times an opponent will try to corral you to a point of disadvantage, a point for their advantage. Because if you're at a disadvantage, then they're at an advantage. And one of the things that's being talked about is people should come off of YouTube that are trying to sell books. This starts pulling away at the actual fabric of what the network and the community has really, really worked for us. So much so that I remember Ryan Kennel coming on after that Zack Snyder stuff and saying, we see the money you make over. No, we see this. Okay, so I just want to point that out. What we do works. Do people want something faster? Obviously. I have known crowdfunding since 2010. 2010, crowdfunding has always been a threat to gatekeepers. It's always been a threat to publishers, because if creative could go make the same money in crowdfund, because that's really 2 things Marvel and DC have when the internet kicked off. They have money, they have characters. Well, what if they lose money? They only have characters. And once some talent makes their name off the character, then they're going to go make the money. Okay. So the idea that people could go crowdfund books kind of blew the gates off the wall. Okay, the gatekeepers are just annihilated. They're being trampled by. Their possibilities are endless. Creators can go make the books they want. There's no approval process. There's, there's ownership involved now. There's all of these things. So now, let's say the market's kind of changing a little bit, and people are saying it's like, you know, um, let's pretend like there's going to be a YouTuber done book market coming up. Well, it's to their advantage for us to stop YouTubing. It's to their advantage for us to come off the map for a year raising funds. Because then they'll have their book done. So I feel like it's for me and what I'm going to do in this year. I would piss on their challenge. I'm not going to come off of YouTube, and I'm not going to not crowdfund this year. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what I've done with the money from Inglorious Rex 2 following this, so this will make sense. The reason I'm not going to do it is because I believe crowdfunding is just like a comic book page. Anybody that read Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics will understand this. If you haven't, you draw panels. Um, you have these panels. You have word balloons and these images, and they form a story. But technically, this doesn't form a story. These panels don't really form a story. This is just paper. This is just ink. So how did the story come about? Word balloons? Yeah. Images? Sure. But what was part of the story? The part of the story, what made this a story is you reading it. Your brain puts and processes these panels and makes a narrative in your brain. Now, it's my job as a storyteller to have the right morsels down to string together a better narrative, whether it's script, whether it's artwork, but you are part of the story. Your brain is processing these things and digesting them into a story. Okay. And that's a very important part of a comic that's unlike a movie or anything else, is the viewer is actually participating in the narrative in a weird subconscious way, I guess. I don't know what you would call it. The mechanism of reading a comic. And it's called the story between the gutters. The things that what connects two images, two panels, whatever, that's you. To me, and I'm speaking for myself, nobody else, crowdfunding is you making it possible for me to make a beautiful book like this, to make Inglorious Rex, to make Starlight Cats. It's you making it possible that this comic actually exists. I could go make this comic and I could have it done and I could have it printed. I'd be like, okay, guys, buy my book, buy my book. But instead, I say, I'm going to make this book. I'm going to do lenticular cards. I'm going to make miniatures. I'm able to do these things with the more support you give me. Hell, I'm going to have art contests and pay people money to draw my characters. And guess what I do from the art contest that you guys will find out in Inglorious Rex 3? I then sometimes take those artists and I hire. I took money from Inglorious Rex 2. I already have 3 artists working under contracts on Inglorious Rex 3. Money from 2 went forward and created jobs for a book and campaign I haven't even ran yet. People are like, oh, one campaign's paying for another. No, one campaign's paying for future campaigns. I'm actually working ahead now. I'm actually giving new artists, jobs. I'm working with them on layouts. I'm working with them on producing great comics. And hopefully one day they will be able to do their own comics. Okay. This is going to be what we look at as the future of the American comic book industry, whether people know it or not. We are already here. And now we're moving forward with it. Okay. Like that's where we're at. Okay. That's how I'm doing it. And you guys are making it possible for this happen by pre-ordering a book, by sponsoring a book. I'm going to make more cards. I'm going to give you posters. I'm going to give you these extra things. And I'm going to go out here, find new talent, and try to hire them to make other content. Okay. I'm not going to take the challenge to come off of YouTube, whether I turn my camera on and I ink or I do a short video or whatever, because I don't care what Zach says. I can make a comic and I can do YouTube at the same time. Okay. I don't know why people think you can't do that. Okay. Like, now, is it, with that said, will I get behind sometimes? Absolutely. Why? Because this person has a closeout, this person has a launch. I'm part of the community. We're here to build it up. Okay. It is a suicide pact, this narrative, to come off of YouTube, don't sell your book for a year, because we would come off the market and we would stop advertising. Again, the YouTube, our marketing branch, our advertisement, not just for the books I'm selling now, but for future audience, for future customers. Of course, anybody that sees us as an opponent would try to manipulate a narrative that would challenge us to do both at the same time. Why don't we just drink fucking cyanide while we're at it? I disagree with this. I personally don't. Somebody might feel obligated to go do it. I think it's just poor business. I think it's really bad. I think it's a way to lose gains we've already got. And that's not even saying the future people we're going to find throughout a year of YouTubing. There's new people coming in. There's some people saying, I don't want it to be involved with it anymore. Leroy used to be around. Leroy's like, he told me, it's just, I got other hobbies. It's too much. I have a different job. People are going to cycle in and out. Okay. I want more people to stay, obviously. But sometimes life changes people. Like, I changed hobbies. I'm in a relationship, whatever. Something changes in their life. It's very dumb to say, I'm not taking on new customers. I'm coming off of YouTube for a year. I'm only going to sell my book for X amount of time, or I'm only going to YouTube when my book's done. I see so many people come up with a campaign to sell. They have no YouTube. They haven't put themselves out there. They don't advertise themselves. They're just expecting CG to sell their book. It is a network, but part of being a network is you're adding to it. Again, I use the metaphor. I've done it before. Take a penny, leave a penny. Okay, like, I that's what I believe. It's, I've worked for this for 3 years here. I mean, I don't see myself saying, yeah, this thing that's worked for 3 years, somebody challenged me to it. I should take them up on their challenge and be like, I'll prove it to you. I'll poison the well. I'll just let all the people sub to me. No notifications go out. I'll show you. I'm going to take a year and only sit back and draw my book. But hey, wait, how's my utilities going to be paid? Hey, how's my taxes going to be paid? How's my health insurance going to be paid? This is why the American comic book industry has only ever existed, because of a cash flow. There has to be a cash flow. Marvel and DC comics get made because there is a cash flow, because artists are able to pay their rent, their mortgage, they're able to keep their power on, they're able to do all of these things because there is a cash flow. Okay, that's it. So if all of us just stopped, like, we're going to make money somewhere else, and then the book's going to take 3 times as long to get done anyway. And then what? We're all going to go turn on our notifications all of a sudden after a year of working on our book and not YouTubing? Not a lot of people's going to show up. You see how this works. Is it advantageous to other people? Most likely, if they're trying to sell books, it is for us to do this. Now, is there some gripes out there? Well, I would like a hot and ready book. My books are available on my site. I got to drop off a package Monday, tomorrow, of pre-ordered books. You can go buy them. Okay. I try to keep a $25 copy of my books, not exactly the ones from the campaign, on my site, because those I want to go up and retain in value. But this suicide pact, if people think for a second, it's smart. Think how it would look if you jumped off of YouTube for a year to draw your book. Think of how, like, just disappearing for a year, the audience that would be there to buy it. Your opponent wants you to do that. That is not smart. It is not, I believe, for me, it's not smart. For me, if somebody else wants to do it, that's up to them. But my stance is fuck that. It's not even worth entertaining.
So that's a great Shane Davis. I think making it very clear. I know that went on for a little while, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to hear what he had to say about it. And yeah, fuck that. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. It's stupid. And it might not even work, because whether you're on time and you do fewer streams, or you're late, and you're gonna, you maybe do need to see, Ethan does need to spend more time on Rec Planet and on Rainbow to Brute right now. But whether he does that or not, it could very well be that you're going to see a drop off in sales between books anyways. Because again, people cycle in and they cycle out. I think Shane Davis is correct. And John Malin said this before too. What would happen if everyone was to just jump off of YouTube, and would just kind of disappear and go do books or whatever? Would there be any audience to come back to? And that was the argument I made last time. I think that particularly for 99% of creators who are not doing this full time, they probably need to do more YouTube. If they ever want to get to the point of what Shane Davis and Ethan Van Sciver, and John Malin and even Eric July are able to do, you have to build up your YouTube. I see Shane Davis here is up to 9,000 subscribers. He needs to keep going. He needs to be much bigger than that to truly be, I think, self-sufficient in this regard. So I think that comparing what Zack is doing to what Ethan and Eric July are doing, I think it doesn't apply to 99% of crowdfunding creators. And so I think that Shane Davis is actually offering much better advice in this regard, because, arguing over what Zack, Ethan, and Eric July should do has almost no bearing on almost all of the books that I back by people who, are making not six figures. Most of these campaigns are not getting above $100,000. And therefore, most of the creators who are doing this are not spending full time on the books that they got. They might even be able to do it at cost. They'll be lucky if they don't post a loss on the books that they put forward there. In any event, that's why I did this video. That's why I did this poll. I wanted to see what the customer expectations were. 75% of comic skaters seem to think and know that books tend to be late. You know what they keep on doing? Backing them. Those are customers. I think they're right, because they're the most loyal customers in Comicsgate. You can try to, get the Vickyverse crowd to back your books, but I don't think it's going to work. Here's Tyler. Oh, I'm gaslighting. Am I, Tyler? You know how I found out about your books, Tyler? Ethan Van Sciver reposted it on Twitter. That's how I discovered you, and I bought your books. They're pretty good too. In any event, I wouldn't listen to the Vickyverses. I would listen to Shane Davis. I think that that's probably a smart way to go. Someone who's been doing this for a long time and who's also been doing the YouTube and the crowdfunding. He understands how this works. And I thought this was one of the best speeches, because everyone's just attacking late books and is attacking comics creators who are on YouTube. And they are going at the very heart of how people have been successful in independent comics. And I think Shane Davis has been able to perfectly illustrate in this particular video. Again, links in the description. Take your shot. What the kind of trade-offs are for being able to tell your own stories. You want to tell your own stories? Well, you're going to have to be a self-promoter. A lot of people have been attacking Mandy Summers. Of all comic skaters, and I think all YouTubing, independent comic promoters, I don't think anybody numerically has had more people on their live streams to promote their projects than Mandy Summers. She's done by far more than any one of them. She has the record. And the idea that anyone would attack her for being on YouTube when she's doing so much to help so many creators is she's your top sales performer. You do not attack your top sales performers in an organization. You give them a raise. You say, thank you. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Shane Davis. Thank you, John Malin. Thank you, Ethan Van Sciver, for promoting independent creators. I'd love to do this one day myself, but I work full time and I don't even have that much time to YouTube. So I'm going to have to build my platform. I probably need to make videos talking about stuff like this. I think it's important. I wanted to, again, bring attention to the fact that on time or late. Everyone's seeing a drop off in sales in 2023. I think it has to do with the business cycle coming to an end. There could be a recession that's about to happen. Even if not, though, even if there's just an economic slowdown, you are seeing that consumer credit and inflation have both peaked. This tends to happen before recessions. So I'd be very surprised if we didn't have one, but maybe you get a soft landing here. But Fed's projecting unemployment's going to go up to about 4.1% this year. That's an implied 650,000 potential jobs lost this year. And so, tell everyone who's, credit cards are maxed out, that there's not a recession, or that, they're struggling to make ends meet right now. There might not be as much money available in 2023 and 2024 to make purchases of luxury goods like crowdfunders, but for those who can afford it, heck, we really appreciate it. Again, this is Robert Romano with comicskate.org. Let's see here. We'll go back over here. We'll stop sharing. And we got a big chat here. Let's see. Here's Heath Skeet first. Hey, Robert. How you doing, Heath? I hope all's going well with the virtual tabletops. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. All right, let's see. Everyone check out Heath Skeet first. He does a lot of RPG stuff. Also great. Check out Table Talk. A great channel. Let's see. Vilnet says, don't drink Kool-Aid, drink Tang instead. Maybe that's a good advice. Don't have the Kool-Aid, guys. Mr. Solomon says, hail. Let's see. Mr. Solomon said she did a great job in the face of a lot of trouble. Who's she? Let's see. Heath says, I think these are a lot of great points about the reality of crowdfunding, regardless of the type of creative product. Yes, I think that, realistic expectations, Heath, about what goes into crowdfunding and creating reasonable expectations for customers is very important. Here's Vilnet again. Late books. It's almost comical at this point. It's like not almost everything, but like 3 out of 4 books are late, and then like everyone keeps funding them year after year after year, and it's like late books hurt, and it's like, okay, I've kind of had enough of this argument. It's like, show me that on time books helps. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go through the numbers. I'll report back what the numbers are. Let's see here. K-Sis says, I'm here to watch Comic Skate News, CGN. This is Robert Romano with Comic Skate News, comicskate.org. Also, check out cgnow.net. Check out creatorgo.com. Just a brief word from our sponsors there. Here's K-Sis. Late books. He also says, it's the economy, stupid, was once said for a reason. That was James Carville in the context of the 1992 presidential campaign. Everyone blames Ross Perot for George Herbert Walker Bush losing. But I think it's the economy, stupid. James Carville and Bill Clinton, they might have won that election anyways, because of things like, people maxing out their credit cards, and inflation actually got quite high in 1990 and 1991 before the recession and leading up to it. That's what happens. The economy overheats because of inflation, and then you get a recession. Let's see. K-Sis says, make no mistake, the delivery schedules do need improvement. I agree with that. But the argument of stop streaming is a mistake, in my honest opinion. Streaming is a part of marketing. Out of sight, out of mind is a thing. I agree with that. And Zach was making a similar argument about his own late books. I think he had done another hiatus on YouTube. He said, what I've done is I lost the confidence of my customers. So he's thinking of it, I'm a publisher more than a YouTuber now. He says he can't do both, even though he initially thought that he had to do both. So he did a $1 sale, and he tried to get all his customers back. But if you stop publishing for a long time, or you stop delivering books, people are going to forget about you. If you stop YouTubing and you stop marketing, people are going to forget about you. The argument I'm making is that there's such a distance between either crowdfunding and then the delivery time. If you only got like 1 or 2 books coming out a year, you're not going to keep people. You need to keep on marketing in between that. These books take about an hour or so to read. What are we supposed to do for the other 364 days of the year? We're going to go to the virtual comic convention on YouTube and Comicsgate, and we're going to listen to what people are saying on YouTube, because they have interesting discussions. And that is how creators are going to find new customers. I think it's important that they keep doing that. K-Sis says, YouTube for creators is the equivalent of Coke and Pepsi spending so much on advertisement. I agree with that. It's branding. Do they need so many ads? Their research seems to suggest yes. Yes, they do. Yes, they have to keep streaming. VLNet says, Droopy Face Shane has a point. Poor Droopy Face Shane. He does have a point, though. Shane Davis is right. John Malin is right. These guys know what they're talking about, and they are offering good advice. Grab an oar, build your platforms. That's exactly what independent creators have to do. And you have to keep on marketing. And you have to build up a live audience. I think this might be a record for one of my live audiences. Actually, 7 people are watching while I'm going to the chat. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button. Please share this video. Let's see. Okay, Sis says Saggy Face is right, as usual. VLNet says Starlight Cats drink Tang like the astronauts. Starlight Cats is one of my favorite books. I have so many. I always keep saying that. It's one of my favorite books. Starlight Cats was really good. I enjoyed that. Let's see here. Okay, Sis says the astronauts were all about the Tang when I was a kid. They were like rock stars. Shane Davis is 100% right. Also, Eric is being disingenuous. That's what he would say. He's constantly streaming and talking about his comic. It's more do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, but he says he's going to cut down on live streaming. So, he's taking up Zach's challenge. He's going to cut down on live streams. Well, yeah, and he may have even been doing that last year, and his sales went down 37%. So I don't know, maybe streaming. I mean, it might not have to do with a lack of streaming. Again, there could be business cycle issues that are going on here, but either being on time or being late does not seem to matter in that regard. If we're going to measure success. Casey says Vicky giving business advice is like taking dieting tips from Lizzo. Oh God. Here's Earthmind. We're getting to the bottom of the chat here. Great stream, Robert. Just been here lurking and listening. Well, again, I thank you everyone for tuning in. We're to the bottom of the chat now. We've been going for 56 minutes. Wow, I kept it under an hour. I guess that's a really good time to get out of here. This is Robert Romano with comicskate.org. Again, it doesn't seem to matter if you're late or you're on time. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. You might see a drop off in sales anyways when the business cycle is coming to an end. But rest assured, if you disengage from YouTube, you have to start all over again. You have to reestablish your brand. You need to reestablish your video presence. I stopped doing videos for a long time. I've just started doing them up again. And it's like starting all over again. And, maybe I'll have to take a hiatus again. Again, I work full time, so I might not have as much time to do YouTubing. Again, this is Robert Romano, comicskate.org. Hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell for notifications. Wait, we got one more here. Drink Tang, never the Kool-Aid. We'll let Casis have the last word there. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, guys. Have a good evening.